Every professional has a unique magic waiting to be discovered. At Finding the Unicorn in You helps you unlock your hidden potential. Thank you for tuning in. Now switching it over to our host.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Finding the Unicorn in You. Today, I have a special guest. He is a transformation coach, speaker, and educator who works with clients to help them navigate the path of personal and spiritual growth. He is a certified life coach, certified psychedelic integration coach, NLP Master Practitioner, and HNLP Certified Coach. So without further ado, welcome Greg Lawrence. Hey, Greg.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you for being on. So why don't you tell us a little bit about what got you into this? And you have a lot of very specific niches. So I'm curious, why did you add those on?
There's a bit of a story. Is that okay?
Oh, yeah.
So in my probably late teens through late 20s, I did a lot of psychedelics along with just about anything else I could put into my body to alter my consciousness. And in my late 20s, I got mixed up with hard drugs.
Okay.
My life spiraled out of control very quickly. And fortunately, someone pulled me out of my physical environment. I just cold turkey stopped. I cut contact with all the people that I'd been hanging around with, moved to a different physical area. Yeah, I moved from the South Bay to the San Fernando Valley, which are quite different. I stopped using all substances except for cannabis, which I abused for about 20 years. And I pretty much just led a suburban life. I started a career, had a family, eventually bought a house, had my own business. And then about 10 years ago, I had a tragedy in my life. My wife at the time passed away. And I didn't know what to do. I'd been 26 years with this person, and that was my identity. And while I was in this grief, I realized that there was a whole lot of childhood trauma that I just never even looked at. And that's why I've been putting things in my body to forget where I was. So I sought out a coach and a therapist. And at the time I smoked cigarettes, and I told my therapist, I'm going to try to quit smoking. And he said, oh, I've read this study that said psilocybin helps with that. And I thought, I took mushrooms before. I know what that's like. So I found out where to get some and took some mushrooms, and it was nothing like it was. When I was younger, it was all outside, everything's cool, and got some inklings of what we are outside of just the people that we think we are. But that night when I did those mushrooms, it was completely internal. I just saw all the patterns of my life and things that happened to me where it was my responsibility and someone else's. Complete journey. And at the end, I thought, okay, now that I've seen all that, things are going to be very different for me. And it took about 2 weeks before everything was the same again. Rinse, repeat, and this kept happening. I had these epiphanies and insights, and I could see what was happening in my life, but nothing was changing. So I started digging in and doing some research and found out there was this thing called psychedelic integration, which I had never heard of when I was doing psychedelics when I was younger. I started studying it, and I found a psychedelic integration circle, safe space where people go and talk about their journeys and get support and form community. And people there had all kinds of different ideas about what psychedelic integration means and what you should do. And I tried a whole bunch of them, and nothing was working. And I finally figured out that I had to do something based on the information I'd seen to make some change. I couldn't just wait for the medicine to make me feel like I was going to be okay and do things differently. That's not how new habits work. So I started digging in and trying to figure out how our brains work and how we get habits and what happens in the space between stimulus and response. A thing happens and something comes out of me. That's what led me to NLP, because that's where I figured that part out. But I finally figured out how to make small changes that led to larger shifts in my life. And in the meantime, I had been to these psychedelic integration circles so much that they asked me to start facilitating them. They're like, you're a regular, so-and-so's not going to be here. Can you do it? I was a facilitator, so people would come and ask me questions, and I found that I'm doing sort of counseling, and I thought I should know what I'm doing, and I took a couple of coaching courses, and I became a certified psychedelic integration coach. I had my own small business, and this coaching work kept coming, and I kept pushing it away. I'm doing my job, and it finally got to this critical mass where it was like, this can be your job. And my business was great. It gave me a lot of opportunities, but it didn't get me excited. And I decided that I wanted to try to be the person that I was looking for when I was looking for help. So I got here because I'm doing what I needed from someone at one time. And I very much enjoy helping people. And NLP, HNLP, psychedelic integration were all areas that helped me immensely. So I became certified in those. And those I've been studying quite a lot, along with a lot of neuroscience and behavioral psychology, because I'm fascinated with how the human brain works and doesn't work. and what that leads us to do and not do.
Yeah, there's a saying that you typically become the person that you needed when you were young.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I feel like.
And if you can use that and have passion for it to make a business out of it and help other people, why not? If like
Yeah,
even better, who is it?
absolutely.
You can help people that are probably going in the same path as you were, but now you have the tools to be able to stop and then have a different outcome.
Yeah, because when I was looking for help, I tried in a lot of places that weren't very helpful for me. And I feel like the way that I work is the way that I would have been wanted to help when I was looking for help.
Now, yeah. And I commend you for one, sharing your story. Thank you so much. And then also for going into this, because this is something that is very niche. Like you don't really see a lot of coaches that work into this type of field and integrate psychedelics with neuro-linguistic programming and behavioral psychology. It's unique. How do you see your clients? What kind of clients do you usually attract? And then what are some of the common things you help with?
I attract a lot of different types of clients. There are some people who have not worked with psychedelics who are looking for some sort of guidance, like what might happen and what they might try or what they might not try. And there's a lot of work around that, letting people know that psychedelics aren't for everyone, a lot of harm reduction advice. There are people who will call me because they've had an experience and it was unpleasant and they're a little bit ungrounded and they need help. There are people who contact me because they're planning on having some experience and they want help with the preparation beforehand and the integration afterwards. And the kind of issues that people come to me with is very wide and varied. It can be people who are unhappy with their life situation, can be people with really strong anxiety or depression, can be people who are having specific issues around relationships. It varies greatly.
Got it. And what are some stereotypes that people usually assume in your field that maybe you can debunk right now?
I think that people think that a psychedelic integration coach is someone who facilitates psychedelic experiences, like is a sitter, and that's not what it is. A psychedelic integration coach works with someone before and or after an experience.
Mm,
Beforehand to help them prepare, and afterwards to help them take whatever their lesson was. And there's always a lesson of the psychedelic experience. And whatever way that they feel that they want to help them integrate that into their life somehow.
got it. Got it. Yeah. That's what I thought to begin with. To be honest, it's like you're going with them throughout the journey. Because I've seen like people that lead retreats that do this type of process with a lot of people, but like ayahuasca or like different types of psychedelic retreats. So this is more so if somebody like let's say partakes into some of those, would you help them mentally prepare to enter something like that and then afterwards discuss and debrief?
Yes. And sometimes there are a lot of people who have those type of retreats or experiences from a Western paradigm. But there are a lot of people who might have that experience, say in South or Central America. And in those places, integration's not exactly the same, or there's not as much of a focus on it. I think primarily because the civilizations there are different, the culture's different. I don't know what the documentary was I saw a few months ago, but it was a documentary of a South American tribe, just their daily life and what happens. And there was a scene that really struck me. These were people who lived in a very open circular area with a big courtyard, but everybody saw everyone else. There were no walls or anything, and people took care of each other's kids and helped each other with food. Very cooperative area. And one day there was a woman cooking, and her child was there, and her mother was there. And she told her mother, she said, "My husband went hunting yesterday and he hasn't been home yet." And her mother said, "Maybe he was eaten by a jaguar." And the woman said, "Yes, he might have been." And I thought if someone said that here, head would explode. How dare you say something like that? So the way that we address things and the way that we think about things and the things that we let into our heads and into our conversations and into our consciousness is very different from civilizations where they're very open like that.
Yeah.
So there's not as much need for the type of integration that we do here in those cultures because they're already very cooperative and working with each other. We have a whole different set of programs, like nuclear families and walled homes and the way that we live here. So some people will come to me because they're going to those places and they don't really have the same kind of integration support because that's not ever been a thing for them, really, not in the same ways it is here.
That makes sense. So a lot of them need a little bit of reframing and a little bit of like understanding to be able to find things from a different perspective because like you said, something that may have gone through that situation, they may look at it as a negative, but it could be an opportunity to learn, or it can be a different experience.
Yeah, and there's a lot of misunderstanding about psychedelics in general. There's this whole thing that there's a saying that says there's no such thing as a bad trip.
Mhm.
And then you add the second part, only difficult experiences or whatever. And I understand the sentiment of that, but it's absolutely true that a psychedelic experience will bring up feelings in you that are stuck in there that want to come out. These things are largely feeling and emotion generators. They have a way of scanning a person, just saying, you got a lot of shame in you that needs to come out. The only way that can come out is for you to feel it. So
Mhm.
people can be very uncomfortable during an experience, especially if they're not expecting that. Because if they don't know that's going to happen, they don't think it's supposed to happen, they might start resisting it. And that's where it gets really uncomfortable. And really, that's a life lesson. There's really nothing that happens in the psychedelic experience that's a lesson about the psychedelic experience. It's very much like meditation, in that everything you learn in that experience is a life experience. And it teaches you that if you have feelings coming up and you try to stop them, it's going to be very uncomfortable. And it's not uncommon for people to come to a coach or therapist and say, I don't know what's wrong, but I don't feel good. What's wrong is there are a whole lot of unpleasant feelings being stuck down here that have done for years. And you can only put so many incomplete experiences in your body before it starts reacting.
Interesting. And for those individuals, for example, I grew up in a very like religious, like Mexican household where any type of substance that you put in your body is considered bad, regardless of what it is. Sometimes like they even like borderline with Western medicine, like very anti, don't even do that. Something like this is way far out of their comfort zone. So what would you tell somebody who maybe comes from a more conservative background, more closed-minded on these topics, to at least give them a different perspective on how this can help them?
I would never try to convince anybody that, that they should like or dislike or judge or not judge something like this. Everyone's got their own journey that they're on. And I'm really not of the persuasion. There are a lot of people in the psychedelic community who think that everyone should do psychedelics. I'm sorry, but there are actually groups of white supremacists who do psychedelics and have their worldview strengthened. The medicine will tell them that the white race must be superior.
Yeah.
So psychedelics don't fix people who don't want to be fixed. It has very much to do with intention. So I would tell someone, like, first of all, I'd find out if that's something that they want to do. And if it's something they want to do, I'd probably suggest something like dipping your toe in the water, for instance, breath work, or possibly working with cannabis in a particular way. Those can be very psychedelic experiences, and they can give you an idea of what's going to happen. Because it's not uncommon for people to want to know, what's the experience going to be like? Is it like drinking? Is it like when you're drunk? Like you smoke weed? And there's no way to explain what the experience is like until someone's had it. Then they understand. And there's a very funny thing that you might have an experience and I might have an experience that are completely different, but somehow I still understand the experience that you had.
Mhm.
I understand what that experience is like, even though the content might be vastly different from what you experienced. So there is a sort of a camaraderie among people who have had a psychedelic experience because they know what the other person has gone through in a way.
Yeah. I'm very open-minded, and I totally agree with you. I don't think it is for everyone, and I think one has to be able to have like an interest in it and be willing to try it out if they want to, but in a safe manner. I definitely like utilizing someone like you to prepare like the experience, because you don't know, like making sure you're understanding what's going in your body, what are the common symptoms, what can you potentially go through. Because if you're trying to do it on your own, like self-taught, a lot of things can go wrong. You don't know what to expect. So definitely putting in the research, hiring the right person to help you and help you through your journey. And there's nothing wrong with asking for help and having someone guide you.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what you opened up your own business, you went through this whole journey to find out like what your niche is and what you want to do and how you want to help people. For someone who may be in the early stages of, I want to help people, but I don't really know how to find out how I want to do that. What helped you to decide to take the leap of faith and do this?
What helped me mostly was one of the reasons you see all these different things on my bio is because I looked into all those things and I picked out the bits and pieces that meant a lot to me.
Sure.
So I think that it helps if you're looking to be in the helping profession somehow to do exactly what you said, to be the help that you were looking for. Figure out what works for you, because then you'll be really invested in it. You'll really buy into what it is you're doing. You can follow scripts and take training and do certain things, but if there's a passion behind what you're doing, that's going to go a lot further than any technical knowledge that you might have in any particular field.
Yeah.
So look around, look at different trainings, look at different modalities, look at different types of professions, figure out what might fit for you. And then try it out yourself. Work with someone, see if it works for you, and see what it is you like about it. Look around and see what it is that helps you. That's the biggest thing I could say. Find out what it is that helps you and see if you think that you could use that to help other people.
I really like that piece of advice. And this is something that I see so much resistance when I work with clients. They feel that they have to know all the answers off the get-go. There's so much pressure for 18-year-olds nowadays to just have the answers. And you're like, this is what I'm going to do for the next 50 years. But you have to be okay with pivoting. Your first career is probably not going to be your last career. There's going to be a lot of changes because as humans, we constantly evolve and our interest involves. So what you might have liked at the beginning may not be what you like right now. And like you said, try different things. Be able to risk, learn, adapt, and then change. And eventually you'll find the thing that you're meant to do. But sometimes it's a journey. You're not always going to find it out from the beginning.
That journey from not knowing to knowing has a certain amount of uncertainty between it. And actually, I would tell someone if they needed to know all the answers, that's probably something you need to work on anyway, because you can't possibly know the answers to just about anything. I can have a very good idea of what's going to happen, but really, I have very little idea what's going to happen from one moment to the next. And if you're not okay with not knowing, that's going to cause you some unpleasantness in your life.
Oh, yeah.
And that journey from not knowing to knowing is full of uncertainty. It's full of discomfort. It's full of frustration. So those are all things that we should expect to feel and not try to get out of the way. There's no way to go into a situation where you don't know something and have some uncertainty and a little bit of fear and some frustration. And if you don't like those feelings, then you're not going to put yourself in a lot of situations where you might learn something.
Exactly. You have to be open-minded and you have to be able to be okay with the discomfort.
Yeah.
Just go through it and eventually you'll find something, but you have to be open-minded and be willing to learn from every experience you go through.
Being okay with discomfort in general is just very good advice.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're not, you're going to be struggling a lot.
Oh yeah, 100%. Just because my ADHD has been bugging me, I saw it and now I'm like obsessed over it. Do you have an ASL tattoo on your hand, on your arm?
Yeah, that's what that is. My son is deaf, so that's ASL. I was in the store, I was like this, and the guy said, I get the gun and the fist, but what's the last thing?
Yeah, one of my best friends growing up was deaf, so I learned basic sign just to be able
Oh,
to.
awesome.
So as soon as I saw it, and I was like, wait, I was like, ASL. Oh, that's cool.
Very cool.
Nice. I like that. Must have been hurt. It must have hurt to get that much.
It wasn't bad, actually. I think that's because there's not a lot of bone right there. It was surprisingly easy.
Oh,
I
okay.
only have two tattoos on my body, and I've never gone through a lot of pain. One's here and one's there. Those are both very meaty areas. So
Nice. Like I said, I just had to ask. My ADHD was like hyper focusing on that.
Yeah, cool. It's very cool when someone recognizes that. Most people don't know what it is. But deaf people see it. Oh my God, they love it.
Oh yeah, they're like, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cool. So with a lot of planning and everything that you do in your business, I can only imagine how stressful it can be sometimes. If it gets really busy, there's a lot of things going on. What are some things that you do to ground yourself and release some of that tension and stress?
At a high level, I try to pay attention to what I'm paying attention to. For instance, I sleep very easily. My head hits the pillow and it's not long before I'm out. But every once in a while, I'll be tossing and turning and tossing and turning. Inevitably, I'll realize that I am thinking a million miles an hour and I'm doing it consciously. It's not coming from nowhere. Of course, it's never coming from nowhere. I'm thinking about something that's bothering me. And as soon as I take my attention off of that and just start watching the colors of my eyelids or whatever, I'll fall asleep very quickly. But from a physiological perspective, if I'm caught up and things are fast, I will immediately relax the back of my tongue. That takes it off the roof of my mouth. And when you relax the back of your tongue, that sends a signal to your brain that you're not protecting yourself, because tongue against the roof of your mouth is what you do in preparation to talk.
Mhm.
Preparation to talk a lot of times for us is saying something in response to someone said, because we're protecting ourselves from this attack of some kind that our mind perceives. So if you relax the back of your tongue, you're sending a signal to your brain that you're not ready to talk. Because if you can't talk out loud, you'll start talking in your head. That's a term for dialogue. So I relax the back of my tongue, let my jaw unhinge. That sends a signal to my vagus nerve. Vagus nerve is a channel of nerves that goes through every organ. It's what brings us out of fight or flight. And when it's tensed up, we're automatic. Doesn't matter what's going on in our lives, we will feel anxious. So that sends a signal to my vagus nerve. Now I have my tongue relaxed. I have my jaw relaxed. And then I'll make sure that I'm exhaling twice as long as I'm inhaling. So I'll breathe into the count of 4, for example, and out to the count of 8.
That's a very, very specific. I love how specific it is, and also very simple things you can do right away.
Yeah.
So you're actually one of the first, and I've been doing this this is my 3rd year doing this podcast. You're one of the first ones that actually mentioned physical things that you can do, versus people are usually saying meditation or groundwork or journaling, different things like that. So I really appreciate that. It's a different perspective and something that you can easily do, especially if you're trying to go to sleep, or if you're just trying in the moment, you're like, I sense a lot of tension. Let me try to relax that.
Yeah, progressive relaxation of your body and all those things are fine, but this is an area that's overlooked for most people. So when I'm working with people, I try to get them to understand that there is the mental and there's the physiological. If your vagus nerve is upregulated, it doesn't matter what you do. For instance, there's an exercise that we do where you do some neck stretching, because the vagus nerve runs through here. So sometimes it seems like you get anxious and your muscles tense up. Sometimes when you tense up, you get anxious, because if you get these muscles tightened up, they'll impinge on the vagus nerve and then you'll feel anxious. And sometimes there's nothing wrong. I just feel anxious, which is a very strange thing, because all we're ever really feeling is physical sensations in our bodies, but our brains interpret them different ways.
That's very true. That's very true. No, that's very good advice. Now we are towards the end of the podcast, and I want to ask you, what is the one unicorn lesson that you have learned in your life that has impacted you the most and made you the person that you are today?
I think the fact that I have some control over the reactivity that I have throughout the day.
Hmm.
So there are things that are upsetting. There are physical things like a traffic jam. How upset do I need to be at a traffic jam? I think the lesson really is, how helpful is it to actively not do something? I can not like something, but if I don't like that the sun comes up in the east every morning, I can note that I don't like it. But if I spend the entire day thinking, I don't like that, how helpful is that to me? And one of the things that brought me to NLP and HNLP is it taught me how to undo some of the automatic responses that I have to things. Taking that reactivity out to a large extent improved my life immensely. I saw someone this past week who gave a talk and was talking about taking the pebble out of your shoe. That if you have a pebble in your shoe, it's just a pebble, and you can walk, and you're not gonna have a major injury, but it's uncomfortable. And after a while, it can get really uncomfortable if it stays in there and you're focusing on it and it's bugging you. But you can stop and you can take the pebble out of your shoe. And it seems like a little thing, but it makes things much more pleasant.
Mhm. No, that's a really good piece of advice. And sometimes we fixate over those small little things that we can't control sometimes, or that we can control, but we choose to fixate on them. Or like something that, like they say, don't cry over spilled milk. It already happened.
Yeah.
So how can I change my perspective, or what can I do in the future so that it doesn't happen again? But if you fixate on those type of like negative thoughts and those negative actions, that will then create a ripple effect in how you're behaving in the future.
Absolutely. Yeah.
No, this has been amazing. Thank you so much for all the pieces of advice and sharing everything that you've done. If somebody wants to work with you, follow you, your journey, or just have any questions, how can they get in touch with you?
Yeah, they can always find me. Well, I'm on Facebook. I'm Greg Lawrence, but you can find my website at greglawrencecoach.com.
Perfect. And for listeners, I will have all of the links in the show notes. If you scroll down, just click the links, you'll go directly to them as well. I will also have Greg's social media posts social media links on there. Also, if you go to my website at rainbowcareercoaching.com, go to the Unicorn Wall of Fame, you'll see Greg on there with his picture, bio, and links, along with a summary of this podcast as well. Let's find a reminder for everybody. Make sure you share, leave a comment, a review, share this to other people so that this type of content keeps going around and spreading the knowledge of what these lessons are today. And episodes come every Friday at 7 a.m. Thank you, Greg, for everything. Any last words before we close out today?
Yeah, thanks for doing this.
Of course. Thank you so much. And until next time, everyone.